Girl makes strange hand signal on plane. But when the flight attendant realizes the reason, Jake Sullivan moved efficiently through the narrow aisle of the Boeing 737, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to the relaxed attire of the passengers settling in for the 4-hour flight from Chicago to Las Vegas. At 28, Jake was a seasoned flight attendant, known for his warm smile and attentive service. But behind his friendly demeanor lay a sharp mind and a knack for reading people, skills honed over years of dealing with travelers from all walks of life. As Jake helped an elderly woman stow her bag in the overhead compartment, his eyes swept over the cabin, taking in the usual mix of excited tourists and weary business travelers. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Yet a faint sense of unease nagged at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. In row 14, seat A, sat Lily Chen, a petite 16-year-old with long black hair and almond-shaped eyes that darted nervously around the cabin. To any casual observer, she might have looked like any other teenager apprehensive about flying. But Lily's anxiety stemmed from something far more sinister than a fear of turbulence. Next to Lily, in seat B, sat a man in his 40s, his expensive watch and designer sunglasses at odds with his attempts to appear inconspicuous. Marcus Delgado exuded an air of quiet authority, his hand resting possessively on Lily's arm. To anyone who asked, he was simply an uncle escorting his niece to a family reunion. The truth was far more complicated and dangerous. Across the aisle, in seat 14D, sat Sarah Thompson, a high school teacher from Milwaukee on her way to a well-deserved vacation. At 35, Sarah had a keen eye for teenage behavior, honed by years in the classroom. As she settled into her seat, her gaze lingered on Lily, a flicker of concern crossing her face. As the last passengers boarded and the cabin doors closed, none of them could have anticipated how their lives would intersect over the next few hours. Jake, focused on his pre-flight duties, had no idea that he was about to become embroiled in a situation that would test his training and his humanity. Lily, trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape, was desperately seeking a way out. Marcus, confident in his control, never imagined that his carefully laid plans could unravel mid-air. And Sarah, looking forward to a week of sun and relaxation, had no inkling that her teacher's instincts were about to play a crucial role in a life-or-death situation. As the plane began to taxi towards the runway, the stage was set for a journey that would prove to be anything but routine. The flight had been in the air for about an hour when Jake noticed something odd. As he made his way down the aisle with the beverage cart, his attention was drawn to the girl in 14A. She seemed on edge, her body tense, eyes downcast. It wasn't unusual to see nervous flyers, but something about her demeanor struck Jake as different. As he approached her row, Jake put on his most reassuring smile. "Can I get you anything to drink?" he asked, first addressing the man in 14B. Marcus Delgado looked up, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Just water for me?" And he paused, glancing at Lily. "A soda for my niece." Jake nodded, reaching for the drinks. As he handed the soda to Lily, their eyes met briefly. In that moment, Jake saw a flash of something that made his heart skip a beat. Fear, desperation, a silent plea for help. Lily's hand shook slightly as she reached for the drink. As her fingers brushed against Jake's, she made a quick, deliberate motion. To anyone else, it might have looked like a nervous tick or an accidental movement. But Jake recognized it instantly. A hand signal he had learned about in a recent training seminar on recognizing signs of human trafficking. The signal was simple, but unmistakable. Lily curled her thumb into her palm and closed her fingers over it, like a silent cry for help. Jake's mind raced as he completed the drink service, his training kicking in. He knew he needed to act, but he also knew he had to be careful. False accusations could be disastrous, but if Lily was indeed in danger, every moment counted. As Jake made his way back to the galley, he caught the eye of his colleague, Maria. "Cover for me for a few minutes," he whispered. "I need to check something out." In the cramped privacy of the rear bathroom, Jake's hands trembled slightly as he pulled out his phone. Flight regulations typically prohibited cell phone use, but every plane was equipped with a special system for emergency communications. He quickly typed out a message to the pilot, explaining the situation and requesting permission to contact ground authorities. The response came swiftly. Permission granted. Use caution. Will alert air traffic control. Jake's fingers flew over the keypad as he sent a coded message to a 911 dispatcher on the ground, providing details about Lily and Marcus, their seat numbers, and the hand signal he had observed. As Jake emerged from the bathroom, he noticed Sarah Thompson watching him intently from her seat across the aisle. She had been observing Lily and Marcus since takeoff, her teacher's instincts on high alert. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly as Jake passed by. "I don't want to overstep, but I'm concerned about the girl in 14A. Something doesn't seem right." Jake nodded almost imperceptibly. "We're aware and taking appropriate measures," he murmured. "Thank you for your vigilance. Please, act normally and don't draw attention to them." Sarah's eyes widened in understanding, and she gave a slight nod before turning back to her book. As Jake resumed his duties, he felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He knew that law enforcement would be waiting when they landed, but they still had over 2 hours of flight time left. 2 hours in which anything could happen. Marcus Delgado was no fool. He had noticed the prolonged interaction between the flight attendant and Lily during the drink service. His eyes narrowed as he observed Jake's slightly tense posture. The whispered conversation with the woman across the aisle. Leaning close to Lily, Marcus hissed under his breath. "What did you do? Did you say something to him?" Lily shrank back in her seat, her voice barely a whisper. "No, I didn't say anything. I swear." Marcus's grip on her arm tightened painfully. "If you've ruined this, you'll regret it. Remember what's at stake." Lily nodded mutely, tears welling in her eyes. She had taken an enormous risk with the hand signal, a gesture she had learned about through a school assembly on personal safety. Now, trapped in a metal tube hurtling through the sky, she could only hope that someone had understood her silent cry for help. As the flight continued, the tension in row 14 was palpable. Jake, hyper-aware of every movement, struggled to maintain a calm facade. Sarah kept a watchful eye from across the aisle, ready to intervene if necessary. And Lily, caught between hope and terror, wondered if her small act of bravery would lead to salvation or disaster. The stage was set for a mid-air drama where the stakes couldn't be higher, and every passing minute felt like an eternity. As the flight progressed, Jake found himself constantly aware of row 14, making frequent passes to check on the situation while trying not to arouse suspicion. During one such pass, he noticed Lily's hands trembling as she attempted to open a bag of pretzels. "Allow me," Jake said softly, reaching for the bag. As he handed it back to her, he made deliberate eye contact, trying to convey reassurance. Lily's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of hope crossing her face as she realized her signal had been understood. Meanwhile, Sarah Thompson had been discreetly observing the interactions between Lily and Marcus. Years of working with teenagers had honed her ability to read body language, and everything about this situation set off alarm bells. She noticed how Lily flinched at Marcus's touch, how his seemingly casual gestures carried an undercurrent of control. Determined to help, Sarah formulated a plan. Pretending to stretch, she accidentally knocked her book onto the floor near Lily's feet. As Lily instinctively bent to help retrieve it, Sarah whispered quickly, "If you're in trouble, nod once." Lily froze for a split second, then gave an almost imperceptible nod as she handed the book back. Sarah's heart raced as her suspicions were confirmed. She caught Jake's eye as he passed by again, giving him a subtle thumbs up to indicate she had made contact. In the cockpit, Captain Evelyn Rodriguez received an update from air traffic control. Law enforcement had been alerted and would be waiting at the Las Vegas airport. They advised maintaining normal flight operations to avoid tipping off the suspect. Evelyn called Jake to the cockpit for a briefing. "We've got confirmation," she said in a low voice. "The girl's name is Lily Chen. She was reported missing from Chicago 3 days ago. The man with her is wanted for multiple trafficking offenses." Jake felt a mix of relief and anxiety wash over him. They were right to be concerned, but now the pressure was on to ensure Lily's safety until they landed. As Jake exited the cockpit, he nearly collided with Marcus, who had been making his way to the lavatory. For a tense moment, the two men locked eyes. Jake maintained his professional demeanor, but Marcus's gaze was suspicious, bordering on hostile. "Is there a problem?" Marcus asked, his voice low and threatening. Jake smiled pleasantly, years of experience helping him maintain his composure. Not at all, sir, just reviewing some procedures with the captain. Can I get you anything? Marcus shook his head curtly and brushed past Jake. As he watched Marcus return to his seat, Jake knew that the man's suspicions had been aroused. They would need to be even more cautious now. Back in row 14, Lily felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. Someone had understood her plea for help. The kind flight attendant and the woman across the aisle seemed to be watching out for her, but she also knew the danger was far from over. Marcus was growing increasingly agitated, his grip on her arm tightening painfully every time a crew member passed by. As the revelation of Lily's identity and the confirmation of the danger she was in spread quietly among the crew, the atmosphere on the plane shifted subtly. The flight attendants moved with heightened awareness, their routines now a carefully choreographed dance designed to keep Lily safe and Marcus unaware for as long as possible. With just over an hour left in the flight, Jake, Sarah, and the rest of the crew knew they were in a race against time. They had discovered the truth, but the most dangerous part of their journey still lay ahead. As the plane continued its course towards Las Vegas, the tension mounted. The next hour would determine whether their mid-air intervention would lead to Lily's rescue or end in tragedy. Jake stood in the galley, his mind racing as he considered their options. With just over an hour left in the flight, and Marcus growing increasingly suspicious, he knew they needed to act. The revelation of Lily's identity and the confirmation of the danger she was in had raised the stakes exponentially. After a quick conversation with Captain Rodriguez, Jake made a decision that he knew could have far-reaching consequences. They would initiate their rarely used mid-flight custody protocol, designed for situations exactly like this. It was risky. Acting before they landed could potentially endanger other passengers. But waiting might give Marcus an opportunity to harm Lily or take drastic action. Jake gathered the other flight attendants for a hurried briefing. "We're going to separate them," he explained in hushed tones. "Maria, you'll create a diversion in the forward cabin. Tom, you'll be ready with the restraints. Sarah Thompson in Fort D has already made contact with the girl. She'll be our civilian assist. I'll approach Marcus. Everyone clear?" The team nodded, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. As they dispersed to their positions, Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The plan was set in motion with Maria's voice coming over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." As passengers began to shift in their seats, Jake approached row 14. "Sir," he addressed Marcus, "we have a seat available in first class. As a gesture of goodwill, we'd like to upgrade you for the remainder of the flight." Marcus's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "That's not necessary. We're fine here." Jake persisted, his voice calm but firm. "I'm afraid I must insist, sir. It's a matter of weight distribution for landing." As Marcus began to protest, Sarah Thompson seized the moment. In a fluid motion, she stood up, purposely stumbling into the aisle and blocking Marcus's path. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, fumbling with her bag and effectively trapping Marcus in his seat. In that crucial moment, Jake made his move. With a nod to Tom, who rushed forward with the restraints, Jake reached across Sarah to grasp Lily's arm. "Come with me, Lily. You're safe now." The next few seconds were chaos. Marcus, realizing what was happening, lunged forward with a roar of anger. But he was impeded by the tight space and Sarah's strategic positioning. Tom managed to secure one of Marcus's arms with a restraint, while Jake pulled Lily to safety. Passengers gasped and murmured in confusion as the scene unfolded. Jake's voice cut through the commotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm and in your seats. We have a security situation under control." Lily, shaking and crying, clung to Jake as he swiftly moved her to a secure area at the back of the plane. Sarah Thompson followed, her teacher's instincts kicking in as she sought to comfort the traumatized girl. In row 14, Tom and another male passenger had managed to fully restrain Marcus, who was now shouting threats and profanities. Maria worked quickly to calm the nearby passengers, assuring them that the situation was under control and that they were in no danger. As the initial chaos subsided, The consequences of Jake's decision began to unfold. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom, informing the passengers that they would be making an emergency landing at the nearest airport. The flight path abruptly changed, adding to the sense of urgency and unease in the cabin. In the secure area, Jake knelt beside Lily, who was now wrapped in a blanket and being comforted by Sarah. "You're safe now, Lily," he assured her gently. "We've contacted the authorities and your parents are being notified. You're going home." Lily's sobs gradually subsided, replaced by a look of immense relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. I thought no one would ever help me." As Sarah continued to comfort Lily, Jake stepped away to confer with the captain over the intercom. The decision to intervene mid-flight had set off a chain of events that would have significant repercussions. They were now diverting to a different airport, which meant rerouting dozens of other flights. The airline would face questions and possibly investigations into their handling of the situation. Moreover, Jake knew that his career might be on the line. While he had followed protocol for suspected trafficking cases, the decision to act mid-flight was a judgment call that would be scrutinized heavily. But as he looked back at Lily, seeing the first genuine smile on her face since she had boarded the plane, Jake knew he would make the same decision again in a heartbeat. Whatever consequences he might face, they paled in comparison to the life that had been saved. As the plane began its descent for the emergency landing, Jake felt a mix of exhaustion, relief, and anxiety about what was to come. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew that the repercussions of this flight would be felt long after they touched down. The next few hours would bring police interviews, media attention, and intense scrutiny from airline management. But for now, Jake allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Against all odds, they had recognized a cry for help and taken action. In the high-stakes environment of air travel, where every decision could have life-altering consequences, they had made a choice that had quite literally saved a life. As the plane touched down on the emergency airstrip, lights from police vehicles already visible on the tarmac, Jake squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. The most important thing was that Lily was safe and Marcus was in custody. The moment the aircraft came to a stop, a flurry of activity erupted. Law enforcement officers boarded the plane, quickly taking control of the situation. Marcus was escorted off in handcuffs, still shouting threats and obscenities. Lily, accompanied by Sarah Thompson, was gently led to a waiting ambulance for a medical evaluation. As the other passengers were safely deplaned, Jake found himself in the center of a whirlwind of questions and statements. FBI agents, local police, and airline officials all wanted his account of what had transpired. He recounted the events multiple times, from the moment he noticed Lily's hand signal to the decision to intervene mid-flight. Hours passed in a blur of debriefings and paperwork. It was nearly midnight when Jake finally had a moment to himself. Exhausted, he slumped into a chair in the airport staff room, the weight of the day's events finally hitting him. A soft knock on the door roused him from his thoughts. It was Captain Rodriguez, her face etched with a mix of concern and pride. "You did good today, Jake," she said, sitting down beside him. "The company's lawyers are handling things now. Looks like we're in the clear. Your decision to act was justified given the circumstances." Jake nodded, relief washing over him. "And Lily?" he asked. "She's safe," Rodriguez assured him. "Her parents are on their way. The FBI says your intervention likely saved her life and may help them crack open a larger trafficking ring." As the captain spoke, Jake's phone buzzed with a news alert. The story had broken, and social media was ablaze with accounts of the mid-air rescue. He saw words like hero and quick thinking attached to descriptions of the flight crew's actions. But amid the positive coverage, Jake also saw debates erupting about airline security protocols and passengers' rights. He realized that his decision would likely spark industry-wide discussions about how to handle similar situations in the future. The consequences of his choice were far-reaching, touching not just Lily's life and his own career, but potentially changing policies and raising awareness on a national scale. As he scrolled through the news, Jake felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in their successful intervention, anxiety about the scrutiny they'd face, and a deep sense of gratitude that they'd been able to make a difference. A new message popped up on his phone, a text from Sarah Thompson. "Just wanted to let you know, Lily's doing okay. Her parents are with her now. Thank you for trusting your instincts. You changed a life today." Reading those words, Jake felt a sense of peace settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever consequences he might face, he knew he'd made the right choice. In a moment of crisis, he'd chosen to act, to trust his training and his humanity. And because of that choice, a young girl was going home to her family instead of facing an unthinkable fate. As he finally left the airport in the early hours of the morning, Jake felt changed by the experience. He knew that this flight would stay with him forever. A reminder of the power of paying attention, of trusting one's instincts, and of the profound impact that one person's actions could have on another's life. The consequences of his decision would continue to unfold in the days and weeks to come. But for now, Jake was content in the knowledge that when it mattered most, he'd made the choice to act, to intervene, to help. And that, he realized, was what truly defined him, both as a flight attendant and as a human being. While Jake was dealing with the immediate aftermath of the mid-air intervention, a secondary plot was unfolding that would have far-reaching implications for airline safety and anti-trafficking efforts. Sarah Thompson, the teacher who had played a crucial role in Lily's rescue, found herself thrust into an unexpected spotlight. As news of the incident spread, Sarah was approached by several media outlets for interviews. Initially hesitant, she realized that this could be an opportunity to raise awareness about human trafficking and the importance of bystander intervention. With the blessing of Lily's family and the encouragement of anti-trafficking organizations, Sarah began sharing her experience. She spoke eloquently about the subtle signs she had noticed, the importance of trusting one's instincts, and the value of the see something, say something approach. Her story resonated with people across the country. Soon, Sarah was invited to speak at schools and community organizations, sharing her experience and educating others on how to recognize and respond to potential trafficking situations. Meanwhile, the airline industry was grappling with the implications of the incident. Jake's decisive action had potentially saved a life, but it had also raised questions about existing protocols and training. Airlines across the country began reviewing their procedures for handling suspected trafficking cases. Captain Evelyn Rodriguez, recognizing the need for change, took a leading role in this effort. She began working with airline executives and security experts to develop more comprehensive training programs for flight crews. These programs would focus not just on recognizing potential trafficking situations, but also on how to safely intervene in flight when necessary. The incident also caught the attention of lawmakers. Senator Maria Delgado, herself a survivor of childhood trafficking, saw an opportunity to push for stronger anti-trafficking measures in the transportation sector. She began drafting legislation that would mandate improved training for airline employees and establish clearer protocols for intervention in suspected trafficking cases. As these developments unfolded, Lily's story continued to make waves. With the support of her family and trauma counselors, Lily made the brave decision to share her experience publicly. Her testimony proved invaluable to law enforcement, helping them uncover a larger trafficking network. Inspired by the way a simple hand signal had led to her rescue, Lily worked with anti-trafficking organizations to promote awareness of the signal and other subtle ways to ask for help. Social media campaigns featuring the hand signal went viral, potentially offering a lifeline to other victims. Jake, still processing his own role in the events, found himself drawn into these larger efforts. He was invited to contribute to the development of new training materials for flight crews, sharing his first-hand experience and insights. As weeks turned into months, the ripple effects of that fateful flight continued to spread. Airlines implemented new training programs and protocols. Schools across the country incorporated trafficking awareness into their curricula, and a growing movement of vigilant, informed citizens emerged, all more attuned to the subtle signs of those in need of help. What had started as one flight attendant noticing a strange hand signal had catalyzed a wave of change. The secondary plot that developed in the wake of Lily's rescue was a testament to the power of individual action to spark systemic change. For Jake, Sarah, Lily, and all those involved, the incident on the plane had become more than just a harrowing experience. It had become the beginning of a larger story, one of awareness, action, and the collective effort to create a safer world for all. In the months following the dramatic rescue on the flight to Las Vegas, the lives of those involved became intertwined in ways none of them could have anticipated. The shared experience of that day created bonds that transcended the usual boundaries of professional relationships and chance encounters. Jake, still working as a flight attendant but now also deeply involved in anti-trafficking initiatives, found himself forming an unexpected friendship with Sarah Thompson. Their shared experience on the flight had created a unique understanding between them. They often collaborated on awareness programs, with Jake providing insights from the aviation industry and Sarah offering her perspective as an educator. One evening, after giving a joint presentation at a local community center, Jake and Sarah sat in a quiet cafe, reflecting on how much their lives had changed. "You know," Sarah said, stirring her tea thoughtfully, "I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. I was just a high school teacher on my way to a vacation." Jake nodded, understanding completely. "I know what you mean. That day changed everything for me too. But I'm glad we're able to use what happened to make a difference." Their conversation was interrupted by a call on Jake's phone. It was Lily. Over the past few months, Lily had kept in touch with both Jake and Sarah, seeing them as integral parts of her healing journey. "Jake?" Lily's voice was excited. "I just wanted to let you know. I did it. I gave my first public speech about my experience. It was terrifying, but also empowering." Jake felt a surge of pride. "That's incredible, Lily. I know how much courage that must have taken." After chatting for a few minutes, Jake ended the call, a smile on his face, as he relayed the news to Sarah. They both marveled at Lily's strength and resilience. As they continued talking, Jake and Sarah realized that their relationship had grown into something neither of them had expected. A deep friendship rooted in shared purpose and mutual respect. They had become each other's support system, understanding the unique challenges and emotional toll of their advocacy work in a way that others in their lives couldn't. Meanwhile, Lily's relationships with her rescuers had evolved as well. In Jake, she found a protective older brother figure, someone who understood the trauma she had experienced and could offer a unique perspective on healing and moving forward. Sarah had become a mentor, guiding Lily as she navigated her new role as an advocate and public speaker. Lily's parents, initially wary of her continued contact with Jake and Sarah, came to see them as extended family. They recognized the unique bond that had formed in the crucible of that flight and were grateful for the ongoing support Jake and Sarah provided. Captain Evelyn Rodriguez, too, remained a part of this unlikely circle. Her work on developing new airline safety protocols often brought her into contact with Jake, and she made a point of staying updated on Lily's progress. She felt a sense of responsibility for all of them, her decisive leadership during the flight having played a crucial role in the positive outcome. As the months passed, this group found themselves coming together more and more often. They celebrated Lily's milestones, her return to school, her first public speaking engagement, her college acceptance. They supported each other through the challenges, the nightmares that sometimes still plagued Lily, the emotional drain of their advocacy work, the occasional public criticism of how the in-flight situation had been handled. Their shared experience had forged a unique kind of family, one brought together not by blood, but by a moment of crisis and the choices they had made in that moment. They understood each other in a way that others couldn't, providing a safe space to process their ongoing emotions about what had happened and what they were trying to accomplish. 1 year after the flight, they all gathered for a quiet dinner at Sarah's home. As they sat around the table, sharing a meal and stories of their recent experiences, the full weight of how their relationships had developed hit them. "You know," Lily said, looking around at the faces of those who had saved her, "a year ago, I thought my life was over. I never imagined I'd be here with all of you, doing what we're doing." Jake raised his glass in a toast. To unexpected families, he said, his voice thick with emotion, and to the power of paying attention and taking action. As they clinked glasses, each of them felt the strength of the bonds they had formed. Their relationships, born in a moment of crisis, had developed into a support system, a catalyst for change, and a testament to the enduring impact of compassion and courage. The one-year anniversary of Lily's rescue approached, bringing with it a mix of emotions for everyone involved. The date had been circled on their calendars for months, a stark reminder of how much had changed in a year. As the day drew near, an idea began to take shape among the group, an event that would serve as both a celebration of Lily's recovery and a platform to further their advocacy work. They decided to organize a national conference on human trafficking awareness and prevention, with a special focus on the transportation industry. The event would culminate in Lily sharing her story publicly for the first time on such a large scale. As the day of the conference arrived, the convention center buzzed with energy. Attendees from across the country filed in: law enforcement officers, social workers, educators, airline personnel, and concerned citizens. The air was charged with a sense of purpose and the potential for real change. Jake, Sarah, and Captain Rodriguez took the stage for the opening panel, sharing their experiences and the lessons learned from that fateful flight. Their story set the tone for the day, highlighting the importance of training, awareness, and decisive action. Throughout the day, experts presented on various aspects of trafficking prevention and intervention. New technologies were unveiled, designed to help identify potential trafficking situations. Lawmakers discussed upcoming legislation aimed at strengthening anti-trafficking measures. As the conference neared its conclusion, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Lily stepped onto the stage, her hands shaking slightly, but her head held high. The room fell silent as she began to speak. "A year ago today, I was on a plane, convinced that my life as I knew it was over," Lily began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I was scared, alone, and had almost given up hope. But then something amazing happened. People paid attention, they saw my silent cry for help, and they acted." As Lily recounted her experience, the fear, the hand signal, the moment of rescue, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. She spoke about her recovery journey, the nightmares that still sometimes plagued her, but also the strength she had found in herself and the support of her newfound family. "I stand here today not just as a survivor, but as an advocate," Lily continued, her voice ringing out clear and determined. "What happened to me is happening to others right now, but we have the power to stop it. We just need to pay attention, to trust our instincts, and to be willing to act." As Lily concluded her speech, the entire auditorium rose in a standing ovation. The applause thundered through the room, a powerful affirmation of Lily's bravery and a collective commitment to action. In that moment, as Lily stood on stage, tears streaming down her face, with Jake, Sarah, and the others rushing to embrace her, the full impact of their journey hit home. They had taken a traumatic event and transformed it into a movement for change. The conference concluded with the launch of a new national initiative, a collaborative effort between airlines, law enforcement, and advocacy groups to combat human trafficking. It was a tangible outcome of their collective efforts, a real step towards preventing others from experiencing what Lily had endured. As the attendees filed out, energized and inspired, Jake, Sarah, Lily, and the others gathered in a quiet corner of the convention center. They held each other close, no words necessary to express the depth of emotion they all felt. This climactic event marked not an ending, but a new beginning. It was a powerful affirmation of how far they had come, and a launching point for the work that still lay ahead. In that moment, surrounded by the people who had become her family, Lily felt something she had once thought lost forever: hope for the future. In the wake of the successful conference, the group found themselves at a crossroads. The event had generated significant momentum for their cause, but it had also brought new challenges and conflicts to the surface. As they gathered in Jake's apartment the day after the conference, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of excitement and tension. "The conference was a huge success," Sarah began, her voice tinged with both pride and concern. "But now we're facing some real pushback. Some airlines are worried about the cost of implementing new training programs, and there's been criticism that our approach might lead to racial profiling. Jake nodded, running a hand through his hair. I've been hearing the same things. My own airline is supportive, but they're under pressure from shareholders who are worried about the bottom line. Lily, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. And I've been getting messages, some supportive, but others accusing me of exaggerating my story for attention. It's hard. The room fell silent as they all absorbed the weight of these new challenges. They had known their work wouldn't be easy, but the reality of the opposition they faced was daunting. Captain Rodriguez, who had been pacing by the window, turned to face the group. "We need a plan," she said firmly. "We've come too far to let this momentum slip away. But we also need to address these concerns head-on." Over the next few hours, they worked together to develop a comprehensive strategy for conflict resolution. They decided to tackle the issues one by one, leveraging their diverse skills and perspectives. To address the concerns about costs, Jake and Captain Rodriguez proposed developing a tiered implementation plan for airlines. This would allow companies to phase in new training and protocols over time, making the financial burden more manageable. They also began compiling data on the potential long-term cost savings of preventing trafficking incidents, arguing that the investment in training would pay off in reduced liability and improved public relations. Sarah, drawing on her background in education, took on the task of refining their training materials to explicitly address concerns about racial profiling. She worked to develop modules that emphasized behavior-based identification techniques rather than relying on appearance or stereotypes. For Lily, the personal attacks were the most difficult to address. The group rallied around her, providing emotional support and helping her craft responses to critics. They decided that transparency was the best approach and worked with Lily to share more details about her recovery process, including the challenges she still faced. This honest approach helped to humanize her story and counter accusations of exaggeration. "We need to show people that this isn't about creating a perfect, happy ending," Lily said during one of their strategy sessions. "It's about the ongoing journey of healing and the importance of support systems." To address broader public concerns, they decided to launch a media campaign. Jake reached out to journalists he had connected with during the initial coverage of the rescue, offering exclusive interviews and behind-the-scenes looks at their advocacy work. Sarah worked on developing educational materials for schools and community groups, aiming to build grassroots support for their initiatives. As they worked to implement their plan, they faced numerous setbacks. Some airlines remained resistant to change, citing concerns about passenger privacy and the potential for false accusations. There were heated debates in industry forums and on social media about the balance between security and individual rights. The group found themselves working long hours, often feeling overwhelmed by the scope of the challenges they faced. There were moments of doubt and frustration, times when each of them questioned whether they were making any real difference. One particularly difficult day, after a contentious meeting with airline executives, Jake found himself questioning their approach. "Are we going about this the wrong way?" he asked the group, his voice heavy with fatigue. "Maybe we're pushing too hard, too fast." It was Lily who responded, her voice quiet but firm. "We can't back down now. Every day we delay, more people are at risk. We just need to find a way to help others understand why this is so important." Her words seemed to reinvigorate the group. They redoubled their efforts, focusing on building bridges and finding common ground with their critics. They organized roundtable discussions with airline representatives, law enforcement, and civil liberties groups, working to address concerns and find collaborative solutions. Slowly but surely, their persistence began to pay off. More airlines started adopting their training programs, often with positive results. There were several incidents where potential trafficking situations were identified and addressed thanks to the new protocols. These success stories helped to shift public opinion and industry attitudes. Their media campaign also gained traction. A series of articles highlighting the complexities of trafficking and the importance of community vigilance helped to nuance the public conversation. Sarah's educational materials were adopted by school districts across the country, raising awareness among young people. As the months passed, the group began to see real progress. While they hadn't resolved all the conflicts, they had made significant strides. More importantly, they had opened up a broader dialogue about trafficking and community responsibility. 1 year after the conference, they gathered again in Jake's apartment to reflect on their journey. The room was filled with a sense of cautious optimism. "We've come a long way," Captain Rodriguez said, looking around at the group. "There's still work to do, but we've laid a foundation for real change." Jake nodded in agreement. "It hasn't been easy, but I think we've shown that it's possible to address these complex issues if we're willing to listen and collaborate." Sarah smiled, adding, "And we've built a community of supporters along the way. We're not in this alone anymore." Lily, who had grown more confident in her role as an advocate, looked at each of them in turn. "I'm proud of what we've accomplished," she said softly. "We've faced every challenge head-on, and we haven't given up. That's what matters." As they raised their glasses in a toast to their efforts, there was a shared understanding that their work was far from over. The conflicts they had faced had tested them, but had also strengthened their resolve and their bonds with each other. They had learned valuable lessons about perseverance, collaboration, and the power of sustained effort in the face of opposition. The path forward would likely bring new challenges, but they were ready to face them together. Their attempt at conflict resolution had not only addressed immediate concerns, but had also set the stage for long-term, systemic change. In navigating these complex issues, they had discovered that the true measure of success lay not in avoiding conflict, but in how they chose to address it, with empathy, determination, and an unwavering commitment to their cause. The group's efforts at conflict resolution had brought them to a crucial turning point. As they reflected on their progress and the challenges they'd overcome, they realized that their mission had evolved. What had started as a response to a single incident had grown into a movement with the potential for far-reaching impact. During a strategy meeting, Jake proposed an idea that would significantly expand their scope. "What if we created a non-profit organization?" He suggested. "We could formalize our efforts, seek funding, and really scale up our impact." The idea was met with enthusiasm. Sarah immediately saw the educational possibilities. "We could develop comprehensive curriculums, not just for airlines, but for schools, businesses, and community organizations," she added excitedly. Lily, who had grown into a powerful advocate, nodded in agreement. "And we could provide direct support to survivors, maybe even set up a hotline or safe houses." Captain Rodriguez, always thinking about the bigger picture, chimed in. "This could also give us more leverage in pushing for policy changes at the national level." As they discussed the possibilities, a new energy filled the room. They realized that this was more than just a new direction. It was a chance to create lasting, systemic change. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to bring their vision to life. They consulted with lawyers to set up the nonprofit, brainstormed names, and began reaching out to potential donors and partners. They decided to call their organization Signals of Hope, a nod to the hand signal that had started their journey. The launch of Signals of Hope marked a significant turning point in their advocacy work. It provided a formal structure for their efforts and opened up new avenues for funding and collaboration. More importantly, it allowed them to expand their focus beyond just the airline industry, addressing human trafficking in all its forms. As news of their organization spread, they were inundated with messages from people wanting to get involved. Survivors reached out seeking support, volunteers offered their time and skills, and other organizations proposed partnerships. This new direction brought fresh challenges, but also a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just reacting to a past event, but actively shaping the future of anti-trafficking efforts. As they stood together at the official launch event for Signals of Hope, looking out at a room full of supporters, media, and partner organizations, they felt a mix of awe and determination. They had come so far from that fateful day on the plane, yet in many ways, their journey was just beginning. Lily, standing at the podium to give the opening speech, took a deep breath and began. A year and a half ago, a simple hand signal changed my life. Today, we're here to ensure that signal can change countless more lives. Welcome to Signals of Hope. The applause that followed wasn't just for Lily or for their organization. It was a collective affirmation of the power of paying attention, taking action, and never giving up in the face of adversity. As the clapping faded and Lily continued her speech, the group shared a look of quiet determination. They were ready for this new chapter, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their mission to create a world where no one would have to use a silent signal to ask for help. As Signals of Hope grew and evolved, so did the individuals at its core. Each of them had been profoundly changed by their experiences, their growth, a testament to the transformative power of purpose and perseverance. Jake, once solely focused on his career as a flight attendant, had become a respected advocate and leader in the fight against human trafficking. His quick thinking and decisive action on that fateful flight had not only saved Lily, but had set him on an entirely new life path. He reflected often on how a single moment of awareness had altered the course of so many lives. "I used to think my job was just about serving drinks and ensuring passenger comfort," Jake mused during a quiet moment. "Now I realize that every interaction is an opportunity to make a real difference in someone's life." Sarah's journey had been equally profound. The high school teacher had discovered a passion for advocacy that extended far beyond her classroom. Her curriculum on trafficking awareness was being implemented in schools nationwide, and she had become a sought-after speaker on the subject. "Teaching was always my calling," Sarah said. "But now I'm educating people on a scale I never imagined possible. It's daunting, but incredibly fulfilling." For Lily, the growth had been both painful and empowering. The traumatized girl who had made a desperate hand signal on a plane had blossomed into a powerful voice for survivors. She had faced her fears, confronted her past, and emerged as an inspiration to others. During a support group meeting for survivors, Lily shared her reflections. "There are still days when the memories overwhelm me," she admitted. "But then I remember how far I've come, how many people we're helping, and I find the strength to keep going." Captain Rodriguez, whose decisive leadership had been crucial during the in-flight rescue, had become a driving force for change within the airline industry. She had risen through the ranks, using her position to advocate for better training and protocols. "I've always believed in the importance of being prepared for any situation," Rodriguez said during an industry conference. "But now I understand that true preparation goes beyond technical skills. It's about fostering a culture of awareness and compassion." Even those more peripherally involved had been changed by their experiences. The other flight attendants from that day had become active volunteers with Signals of Hope. Regular passengers who had witnessed the rescue reached out to offer support or get involved in anti-trafficking efforts in their own communities. As the group gathered for their annual retreat, a tradition they had started to reflect on their progress and plan for the future, the depth of their individual and collective growth was palpable. "Look at us," Jake said, gesturing around the room. 2 years ago, we were strangers, brought together by a crisis. Now we're family," Lily finished, her eyes shining with emotion. Sarah nodded in agreement. "We've all changed so much. I hardly recognize myself sometimes." "Growth isn't always comfortable," Captain Rodriguez added, "but it's always valuable. Each challenge we've faced has made us stronger, both individually and as a team." As they shared their reflections, a common theme emerged. They had all discovered reserves of strength, compassion, and resilience they never knew they possessed. Their experiences had opened their eyes to the power of individual action and the importance of community in driving change. Moreover, they had learned that growth was an ongoing process. Each new challenge, each small victory, each setback was an opportunity for further development and reflection. As the sun set on their retreat, casting a warm glow over the group, there was a shared sense of gratitude for the journey they had undertaken together. They had grown in ways they never could have anticipated, their lives forever altered by a single moment of awareness and action. And yet, they all knew that their growth was far from over. With each life they touched through their work with Signals of Hope, they continued to evolve, to learn, and to reaffirm their commitment to making a difference in the world. As the sun rose on another day of work for signals of hope, Jake stood at the office window, reflecting on the journey that had brought them all to this point. The organization had grown beyond their wildest expectations, touching countless lives and sparking a national conversation about trafficking awareness and prevention. Lily's voice called out from the conference room, where she was preparing for a television interview. Sarah rushed past, arms full of new educational materials for an upcoming school program. Captain Rodriguez's voice could be heard on the phone, discussing the implementation of new safety protocols with an airline executive. Jake smiled to himself, marveling at how a single moment of awareness on a plane had spiraled into this incredible movement. Their story had become a powerful reminder of the themes they sought to reinforce every day. The importance of paying attention and trusting one's instincts, the power of a single action to change lives, the strength found in unity and shared purpose, the capacity for growth and transformation, even in the face of trauma and adversity. As he joined his team in the conference room, Jake felt a deep sense of gratitude and purpose. They had taken a tragic situation and transformed it into a force for good, their individual stories weaving together into a tapestry of hope and change. "Ready for another day?" Sarah asked, passing him a cup of coffee. Jake nodded, looking around at the faces of those who had become his family. "Always," he replied. "There's still so much work to do." And with that, they turned their attention to the tasks at hand, each of them carrying forward the lessons learned from that fateful flight. They moved into the future with open eyes, attentive minds, and hearts ready to act, knowing that in every moment lay the potential to make a difference, to offer hope, and to change a life.